Have you ever walked into a room, right, for a meeting, say a family dinner, or hell, even a conversation with your partner, and before anyone said one word, you, yeah, you already knew your part, meaning you knew you would be either the one to keep the peace or the one to take charge, or hell, even the one to sit quietly and absorb whatever tension was in the air. You knew, and you knew instinctively without even thinking where you fit. Now, here's the killer part. You probably thought that was just your personality, right? Just who you are. But the crazy part is, it's not. It's not your personality. In fact, it's not who you are. What it is a role. That's exactly what it is. It's a role, and it was assigned to you. That's right. It was assigned to you in the same house that we've been speaking on over the past few episodes. And the difference is, it wasn't by the family that I spoke of. It was actually by something bigger, a family system. Yeah, a family system that needed you to play this specific role, and you wasn't even aware of it. The fact is, you've been performing this role for so long that you confused. You've confused it, and you think that you're just naturally in your skin when you're portraying this role. Now, while you think about everything that I just said to you, those thoughts, here's what I want to do. I want to welcome you back to another episode in the family arc. That's right. Episode 3 of the family arc, where tonight we're going to be talking about the role you were given in your family that you never auditioned for. This is going to be a good one. But more importantly, we're going to talk about how that role is currently running your relationships present day. Tune in. I'll be right back. Hello, 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 and welcome to that's right, another episode of This Could Get Ugly. Of course, I am Mr. Shaun D. Upshaw himself, and I appreciate you as always for tuning in on this fine Wednesday. A little different. We're doing it a little different this week. Yeah, normally we come in on Tuesdays, but I truly appreciate you for understanding that we had to shift it a little bit for Wednesday. But I wasn't going to let another week fly by without finishing what we started, right? So, of course, in episode 1, we talked about your voice and how it was formed. In episode 2, we talked about your love model. Now, on tonight, I have something special for you. In episode 3 of this family arc, yes, the family arc, we're talking about the role you never auditioned for. Now, what are you talking about, Shaun? Great question. Were you aware that you are currently in a role, whether you know it or not, a role assigned to you from a little tyke up to now? I mean, some of us have escaped that role. Some of us, have managed to get away from it, but some of us are still stuck. And tonight we're going to talk about it. I'm going to break down some of these roles, at least 5 of them, 5 key ones that I believe a lot of people are playing unaware. And we're going to talk about how it plays off in your relationship. More importantly, we're going to talk about how to get out of it. That's what we're going to do. And I'm not going to front. Cheap plug here. It might get ugly. It might get ugly. But anyway, let's jump into it. I got a question for you. Do you realize that every family, right, is a system? Do you realize that every family is a system? And do you realize that in that system, it needs balance to function? or at least to feel like it's functioning, right? That balance, the crazy part about it is it's not always healthy. And that's exactly what I wanted to point out in this family arc, that nothing is really healthy currently. We are allowing a lot of unhealthy thoughts and actions to penetrate the way we interact with people, the way we interact with our relationships, hell, the way we just carry ourselves. And I believe that it's time for a change. That's why we have to get down into the root of things and address this, right? So as I say, the balance isn't always healthy, excuse me. In fact, in most families, the balance is maintained by distributing specific roles to each member. Now, I know you're excited to find out which role you play, and we're definitely going to get to that. But I want to talk about how these roles are rarely spoken about out loud. I'm going to be real. I watch a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of people, and I don't hear many people talking about these roles. I mean, they might dance around them, but I don't think many people are going to get in depth as you and I are going to get tonight on these roles and how they're affecting you in your specific relationship, right? Um, but you want to know how it happens? I'm gonna tell you how it happens. It happens through repetition. It happens through reward and punishment. It happens through behaviors in which you got love, and which ones that leave you isolated, right? So in these roles, they serve one purpose, just like all family. I can't speak for your family, but I will speak for mine. These roles are to serve one purpose: to protect the family narrative. What family narrative? I tell you. A lot of people believe the family narrative goes something like this: we're fine, we're strong, we're blessed. In the role that you play, right? The role that you are picked to play, it exists because you have to make that story feel true. Because nobody want to show any kink in the armors, right? So rather than continue to talk about the dynamics of these roles, right? How about we just jump into it? Let's jump right into it. Let's start with the first one of my favorites. Now, I must admit, this is not me. This is not me. You would tell when I give you the title based on what I've told you up to this point. You would know this is not me. But guess what? This is someone, and you need to know this. So the first one that I want to talk about is the golden child, right? The golden child is the one who carries the family pride, the achiever. This one is the proof that family is doing something right. Every success is always amplified, right? While every failure is minimized or hell even hidden. That's exactly what happens with the golden child. I don't know if you know um, anyone that's a golden child, or hell, if anyone is in your family that's the golden child. But yeah, every like I said, every success is amplified, every failure is minimized or hidden. The golden child is loved loudly, and I mean loved loudly, chest out. Everybody speaks about the golden child in the family. But one thing you need to understand about when you're loved out loud, in most cases, is conditionally. It's definitely conditionally, right? Because one thing about the golden child is their love is attached to performance. You don't believe me? If you're the golden child, stop achieving. Stop achieving and see how quickly the warmth of that love adjusts for you, right? Because here's the thing: as a golden child, you don't even understand what's installed in you. So let me give you a brief breakdown of what's installed in you, right? The golden child, the belief is that love is earned through output. Yeah. They only believe they're loved when they're producing outputs. That you are what you produce. Crazy way to love, right? But that's what the golden child does. That they believe that rest is laziness and imperfection is unacceptable. I want you to think about that for a second. The golden child grows up unable to separate their worth from their accomplishments. Now that I think about it, that's pretty crazy. As I was sitting here writing this down, I'm like, wow, the golden child really go through go through a lot. I wouldn't dare want to be a golden child, right? And how they bring this persona into relationships, right? They bring it into relationships to where they either are demanding the same as how they were demanded, or or they get burnt out trying to be perfect for someone. That's exactly what happens with the golden child. Now, what's the next one, Sean? Glad you asked. I'll tell you. The peacekeeper. I even know one of these. See, the peacekeeper is the one who manages everyone's emotions in the family. Do you know a peacekeeper? Are you a peacekeeper? This person is the mediator, the translator between, in most cases, the parents who won't talk to each other, or the brother and sister that won't talk to each other, or whatever inner beefs. They're dead smack in the middle of it because they are the peacekeeper. These are the people who oftentimes make jokes intention during tension, just to get things on the light mode. And they also are the ones that sacrifice their own comfort to make sure nobody else is uncomfortable. Now, if you are that person, God bless your soul. But if you know somebody that is that person, you need to pray for them. Because what this installs, excuse me, is the belief that their job is to manage the emotional climate, right, of every room they walk into. That your feelings, their feelings, come last or don't come at all. Their feelings don't come at all. They don't even prioritize. Because the bottom line is, whatever the crisis is in the family, it's the peacekeeper's priority. They make it their priority, right? They feel like they have to fix every conflict. And what happens is, when they go into relationships, right, they not only accommodate everything, they absorb, and for lack of a better word, because I don't know any words, they swallow, right? Everything. They swallow everything. They keep their feelings inside. They keep them down here. They don't even bring them up. But the crazy part is, when they finally do break, because I believe I talked about this in the previous episodes. When the peacekeeper finally do break, and they get this range of emotions all over the place, their partner looks at them like, "What the hell is going on with you?" But that's the downfall to the peacekeeper. They're so busy keeping peace that they're not prioritizing their emotions. So let's move on to the next one. Now, I don't know too many of these people, but I'm not saying that you don't. The invisible one, right? The one who learned that the safest place in the family is in the background. Yes. The quiet one, the easy one, the one that never caused trouble. Not because they didn't have any needs, but because they learned early that their needs would not be met. So they just stopped asking. How did they get to that point? Well, what was installed is the belief that they are not important enough to take up space, that their presence is only tolerated but is not valued. You see, the invisible child grows up shrinking in every relationship that they enter into. They don't even ask for what they need. They don't voice what's bothering them. And when their partner says, "You never tell me what you want," they don't know how to answer that. They don't know what to say in response to that, because wanting, just the basic want, was trained out of them before they even knew what a desire was. That's real talk. I have never experienced the invisible one, but based on the research, this is this is this is quite interesting right here. To just move through a room thinking you're just invisible, or people not paying attention to you. Let's go to this one. I've had friends to do this. This is one of my I don't want to say favorite ones, but this is one of the most interesting ones because I think this goes on a lot in our culture, right? The parentified child. Now, I talked about the parentified child in one of our previous episodes, but I never went in depth as far as from this angle, like the role of the parentified child, right? This is the one that becomes the adult before they were supposed to. We all have one of those in the family. Like, what do you mean? The child who raised their younger siblings. Now, we all know one of them, where mom puts you in charge of your brothers and sisters while they go off and do whatever the hell they want to do. Watch your brother, watch your sister. Make sure they get to school, get them up, get them dressed. Yeah, that's the parent-fied child, for lack of a better term. That's the parent-fied child. The child who held a parent's emotional weight. The child who was the confidant, the therapist, and the responsible one, while the actual adults either couldn't or wouldn't handle their own responsibilities. So it forces a child to step up. Now, I've had instances where I was forced to step up, but I mean, let's be real. I got older brothers. I wasn't, it was like I was an older child. I didn't have to watch anyone. So I wasn't really given this type of responsibility to where I have to take care of children and I'm a child myself, or take care of my parent as a child. Now I was forced to make grown decisions. I mean, that's a version of a parent-fied child. I was forced to make grown decisions as a young man. But we'll talk more about that. But what this installs is the belief that love means carrying other people. Now, I have a lot of friends out here, and they say this without saying this. The fact that they are carrying people because it's a sense of responsibility that they were given that they never shed. It just went from a child to an adult. Matter of fact, they don't even believe that anything outside of carrying people, it nothing means it means nothing to them outside of carrying people, right? That they're only valuable when they are useful. Like, use me. Give me a responsibility. That's how I feel loved. That if they stop holding everything together, I mean, this is their mentality. If they stop holding everything together, that it basically will fall. They believe they are the glue. This is what happens with the parent-fied child, right? They believe it will collapse. The parent-fied child grows up into relationships exhausted. Let's be real. They grow up exhausted because they can't stop managing. They can't stop managing. Perfect managers, right? And when someone tries to take care of them, they don't know how to receive that because they're not in that managerial role. They were never on the receiving end of anything. Are you the parent-fied child? That does that ring a bell in your relationship right now? The manager, you don't know how to receive, but you know how to manage the hell out of something. Think about that. As we go into our last one, the one that sat at my address, the one that forced me to do everything that I'm doing currently, the scapegoat. That's the last one, the scapegoat. Now, who is the scapegoat? The scapegoat is the one that gets blamed for everything. And I do mean everything. This is the family's designated problem. I'm going to use my name as an example. Something pop off, it's Shaun's fault. We in a group, we get in trouble. I bet you Shaun led that charge. A fight break out, Shaun in the middle of it. The scapegoat. This is the child whose every behavior is filtered through the lens of they are the difficult one. The scapegoat absorbs families' dysfunction so everyone can maintain the fiction that the family is just fine. In fact, I'm going to take it a step further. Some families would even jump out on a limb and say, we would even be better if Shaun wasn't around. Yeah. But let me tell you what the scapegoat, what happens, what gets installed in them, right? The belief that something is fundamentally wrong with them. Once they develop that after being the scapegoat for so long, they start to believe that something is really just fundamentally wrong with them. They begin to just expect rejection, expect it, second nature. Wake up, yawn. Oh, good morning. How will I get rejected today? That's the attitude of a scapegoat, right? They enter relationships braced for the moment their partner realize or classify them as too much. So what happens when they do that? They often create moments of dysfunction because unconsciously they believe being rejected for something they did feels less painful than being rejected for who they are. That's deep. That's deep. But since I'm a expert on this one, I'm not going to go too deep on this one because I'm gonna save it for another episode. I'm gonna go a little bit deeper on the scapegoat, excuse me, one in a later episode, as I said. But I gave you this because I needed to give you some context, right? I needed you to see all the parts of the system before we jump into how it really affects your relationship. I want you to understand that you didn't audition for any of these roles, right? None of this is your fault. You were actually casted for it long before you were even able to become an adult, able to express yourself, able to think for yourself. This was just the role that you were given for whatever reason. I wish I had an answer for you. I mean, I can give you an answer. You might look at it as I'm being bitter, but I'm saying this is the role that get casted to you, right? And the crazy part is, the insane part is, you have been performing it for so long that you really believe this is actually who you are. But on tonight, I'm going to prove to you that this is not who you are. What time is it, Shaun? It's story time. Story time, y'all. So I know my role. It's quite apparent. I just gave you my role. I know my role. And as I always say, I've done the work and I'm continuously doing the work. So I'm here to tell you that for the reason of saying that naming my role was one of the most uncomfortable things I had to do along this journey of healing, right? Because once you name it, you you can't unknow it. You can't unsee it. You can't unthink it. And in fact, you see it everywhere. I'm just gonna be real. You see it everywhere in conversations and interactions with your friends and interactions with your mate. Whatever your role is, you begin to see it in everything. If you do not believe me, just take a step back and assess what I'm saying. You see it in everything, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not saying this because I don't know. I'm saying this because I've experienced it. I've spoken to many people who have experienced it. This is a real thing. When I look at the role I was assigned in my family, one thing I will say is it was complicated, because the fact of the matter is it just wasn't assigned by one person. It was actually assigned by a system. And I don't even believe that the people who assigned it knew that it was a system of assignment that was going on. Let me give you an example, right? So in the last episode that we had, I talked about my stepfather, right? I talked about how he basically made me the scapegoat in a lot of things, how I was a target in that specific relationship between him and my mother. And I was a trigger mechanism, right? I was the source of disruption in his eyes. Not because, you know, I was really disruptive like that. I mean, I mean, for those who know me, they know I can be a handful sometimes, but I wasn't that disruptive as a kid, outside of just speaking my mind. But because my existence um, in my house was just a tool he could use to, like I told you last week, manipulate my mother. Um, My grandfather, which I talked about in episode 1, in the in a funny comment that he made about me trying to express myself to him and how he called me a sissy. Now, at 45 years old, you can look back and say, damn, my grandfather called me a sissy. But as a kid coming up, you trying to express yourself and you get called out your name, it kind of messes with you, right? It kind of tells you that being expressive is not what you should be as a man. Now I'm speaking for me because I am a man. Can't be expressive. You can't question. You can't. You're just supposed to do what you're supposed to do. And if you do the opposite, then I guess you are what my grandfather say you are. You're a sissy, right? So that was a problem in itself that had to be corrected. But let's not forget what I said about my mother, right? Because this is very, very important. What she did to try to offset what was given to me from my stepfather and my grandfather, right? My mother was the one person who was in my corner. I will say that. Now, her tactics on her being in my corner is what was the detriment. What was the detriment, excuse me, to me. And I'm gonna explain why, right? Remember, I told you how she was to counter what was happening to me? She basically just told me or stopped saying no to me. Anything I wanted, it was a yes. Basically, she accommodated me at every angle. She tried to, like I said, offset every blow by removing every boundary, because that's exactly what happened. She thinks she was loving me, but she was removing every boundary that I would need as a young man growing into a grown man that I would need in order to not only sustain as an adult, but sustain in relationships, sustain in friendships, all that good stuff. She was removing those boundaries, right? Because, like I said, in her mind, I had already been given a raw deal. So her next best thing was, and she couldn't add to it. So she'd rather just tell me no. But here's what that particular role did to me. It made me the one person in my family who thought that he existed outside the rules. Um, Not because I was special, right? But because I was damaged. And I'm gonna be real, everyone knew it. Everybody knew what was going on in my household between me and my stepfather. And I dare to say that everybody knew, for the most part, how I got along with my POS uncle, which I'll be talking about soon. Um, Only a few people know what happened with my grandfather. But yeah, I believe everybody knew. Um, and everybody labeled me as damaged. But see, my mother's love was real. I believe that to this day. But I don't know if she know it was also a response to dysfunction. What her telling me no, which to piggyback off what I said in episode 2, I believe. Her telling me no, what it did was it taught me that my role in any relational system was to be the one who gets exceptions. The one people should handle carefully, right? The one who gets accommodated because the alternative is just too painful. And I carry that. I won't lie to you. I carry that just about into every relationship. But here's the key: I didn't carry it consciously. I basically expected people to make exceptions for me. And underneath everything, there was a belief that if someone really loved me, and I know this is going to sound crazy, that if somebody really loved me, they'd do exactly what my mother did: remove every obstacle, absorb every blow, and never say one hard thing to me. What do you mean, Sean? Basically, I mean that when a partner wanted to hold me accountable, when they wanted to say anything to me, when they wanted to establish a boundary, that didn't feel like healthy love to me. That's how I painted that picture. That's how I painted that canvas. Present a boundary, say no to me, wasn't healthy. It felt like rejection because that's what the scapegoat road does, right? Because, like I said, accountability was something I never associated with love. It wasn't until I got into my late 30s, early early 40s. No, you know what? I'm gonna say late 20s, early 30s. I realized how important accountability was for not only yourself but for a relationship, right? Um, what are you telling us this for, Shaun? I'm not telling you this for sympathy, right? I'm telling you this because I want you to understand that naming the role that you are currently in is the first step to retiring from it. Naming the role that you're currently in is the first step to retiring from it. I mean, hell, you can't quit a job if you don't know that you don't know you have. This common sense. And most of you have been working a position in your family, honestly, that you never even applied for. You never wanted, and hell, you know you ain't getting paid for it. So you're bringing the same work ethic into your romantic relationships, and that is becoming a problem. If you're wondering why you continuously breaking up, maybe it's because you haven't addressed the role that you need to address. Could that be it? I know a lot of people on the internet want to give you the philosophical reasons as to why you're breaking up, but it can be something as simple as identifying your role and retiring from it. Because, like I said, man, listen, as a scapegoat, my mother loved me by removing every boundary. And as a scapegoat, I gladly dove into it. And like I said, I enter into every relationship expecting love to feel exactly like that. No boundaries, limitless accommodations. But guess what, people? That's not love. That is a womb dressed up as devotion. You've heard that from me before. Now, my question to you is, in the current role that you're in, what are you dressing up your womb with? Because I just gave you mine. What are you dressing up your womb with? Think about that. Let that thought sit with you. Because where we're about to go next is we're going to talk about how your role really shows up in your relationships, right? I'm not going to even mention the scapegoat. I'm just going to give you the other four. Because I've been telling you about me, so you pretty much already know the scapegoat. You should have it down pat. For all my scapegoat people, you should already know what's going on. So let's talk about the other roles, right? Here's where things get personal for everyone listening. Because, like I said, your family role didn't stay with your family. Once you stop associating with them or grew up, nah. It followed you into every relationship. Hell, it might be in the current relationship you're in right now without you realizing. And it's shaping the dynamics that you think are about compatibility. But in reality, it's nothing but programming. Let me give you an example. Let me tell you what the golden child looks like in a relationship. What they look like. What you think. They do what they do best. They overperform. They treat the relationship like a job review, right? Always measuring whether you're doing enough, giving enough, being impressive enough. They struggle to be vulnerable, excuse me, because vulnerability feels like weakness, and weakness was never, ever, ever rewarded in their house. Here's the thing. When you get in a relationship, your partner going to want intimacy. Where the golden child fails at this is they give them achievement rather than intimacy. They plan elaborate dates when your partner just wants to sit down and talk about your day. about your feelings, about your emotions. And they just want you to be honest about them. But you can't do that because it's hard to measure. It's hard to measure when you are the golden child, right? And oftentimes when the relationships struggle, rather than look inward, they believe in working harder. They believe the more inputs, the better the outputs. That's how a golden child thinks because that's the only response they know. Let's talk about the peacekeeper in a relationship. All they do is absorb and accommodate. Matter of fact, I said earlier, I don't think I know a peacekeeper, but I take that back. I was around a peacekeeper my entire life. Now that I think about it, as I run this down, my mother was the perfect example of a peacekeeper, doing stuff just to keep the peace. I remember times where I would get into it with my stepfather, and she'd tell me, just apologize, just to keep the peace. It's crazy how that just clicked in. You see how it just clicked in for me? That's how it should click in for you if you're really listening to what I'm saying. These words should trigger something in you to let you know, like, damn, I seen this, or damn, I'm that person. But anyway, the peacekeeper absorb in relationship. They accommodate. They let things slide that shouldn't slide because addressing them feels like creating conflict, and creating conflict feels physically dangerous to them. One thing a peacekeeper will not do is involve themselves in conflict. Here's the thing, your partner will say something that hurts you, and I don't mean to talk about you, but your goofy ass smile through it. And I'm just saying that jokingly, of course, but yeah, your partner disrespects you and you smile through it, which is wild when you really think about it. How the hell do you smile through disrespect? That's what a peacekeeper does, right? If your partner crosses a boundary, you simply adjust the boundary to accommodate them. If your boundary is set, if your line is set at a certain angle, if it goes this way and your partner crosses it, you change it this way. Say, oh yeah, you go that way. I'm gonna move my boundary line down here. That's what a peacekeeper does, right? And what they do is they frame it in a way where they think is maturity. Or here's my favorite. They call it choosing your battles wisely. Bullshit. But the truth is, they're performing the same role they perform at their family's dinner table, managing everyone's comfort at the expense of their own. Terrible. And the crazy part is, your partner doesn't know you're drowning because you're so good at looking like you're swimming. Let's talk about the invisible one in a relationship, the one that believes their presence isn't important. See, they go along with whatever their partner wants them to do because asserting themselves feels foreign. They wouldn't even know what to do. They don't initiate anything. They don't advocate for their own desires, and over time, their partner just stops asking what they want because they learn that hell, you'll just agree with whatever they want to do anyway. And I'm here to tell you that's not a relationship. That is a one directional transaction ship that only benefits the person that's in the relationship with you, right? And furthermore, your partner begins to think that you're disconnected if you're not careful. They start thinking you're disconnected, and that's not even the case. You're not disconnected. The problem is, the truth is, you believe that you take up space. And when you feel like you take up space, you often reminded that in your parents' home, space didn't matter. That's a tough way to live. That's a tough way to be in a relationship. That is crazy. Diabolical. Yeah, that's a better word. That's diabolical. Let's talk about the parentified child in a relationship, the manager. The person that fixes, they anticipate, they carry their partner's responsibilities and then resent them for not carrying theirs in the same manner. I never understood this. I've actually been with a parentified child before, and they do resent you when they feel like they're carrying you or carrying your issues and problems, and they managing you, but you not managing them. But what's wild about this is you don't even know what they want from you. In fact, they never even give you a chance to even figure it out because they just want to manage everything. Um, I told you about how they struggle to let people take care of them. In relationships, I'm a person that love to take care of my partner. Um, my real partner's not if I just talk to you. It's a difference, but we'll talk about that later. Anyway, yeah, they struggle to let you take care of them because once you take them out of their manager position, they don't know how to receive anything. We talked about that, right? So they just rather do everything themselves. And what happens is when they just stay stuck in there, their partner begins to feel managed, not loved, right? They begin to feel controlled, not supported. Because here's the thing, they're not building a partnership. They're just running this a household the same way in which they were given the responsibility to run when they were growing up. And like I said, I'm not going to talk about the scapegoat because I feel like I've done enough with that in the into my story. So you know what a scapegoat does in a relationship because I told you. I told you. I don't know about you guys, but this right here is very, very extremely healthy for me to give you this type of information because I've said this plenty times before that relationships for me are important. Trying to figure them out are important. Um, understanding the dynamics of relationships are important to me. So I get on here every week and go deep with every subject if I have to, in order for you to understand where I'm trying to go with this. And I expect you to show up. Now, don't get me wrong. I know these first three episodes have been some, in this family arc has been some deep episodes, especially how we started in dating. But trust me, it's a method to my madness. You're going to need this. You're going to need this information. You're going to want to go back and listen because if you ever wondered why you are incapable of moving forward, it's going to come back to this. Believe me. So, as always, I can't give you any problems without giving you solutions. So, Shaun, what's the solution for this week? You gave us roles. You gave us how those roles intertwine in relationships, what happens. But now let me tell you how to quit those roles that you didn't choose. As I said before, naming the role is step one, but awareness without action, you know how I feel about that by now. I told you that. Sophisticated self pity. So let me give you how to quit. Let's start with step one, which would probably be my step one in every solution. Naming it out loud. Any issue that you have, you need to name it out loud. Not in your head, out loud, but to yourself first. That's very, very important. Get in the mirror if you have to. but just name it out loud. Let it roll off your tongue. Then from there, you name it or you give it to someone you trust. Say the words. In my family, I was the blank, and I'm still performing it to this day. I want you to know that there's a power in naming it. No, I'm not about to bring in the gospel song, by the way. But there's a power in naming it. Not because it's magic or anything, right? But because a pattern you can name is a pattern that you can interrupt. Understand that, ladies and gentlemen, as we move on to step two. Identify the trigger moments. Your role doesn't run constantly. You should know that. Your role doesn't run constantly. It actually activates in specific situations. The peacekeeper, for example, the peacekeeper activates the second tension enters the room. The golden child activates when they feel their performance is being evaluated. Turn them lights on, they're ready to put on the show. The invisible one activates when they're asked to take up space, something they're not used to. You have to know your triggers, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it basically comes down to. You have to write down your triggers. In fact, I want you to write down the last 3 times you felt yourself slip into whatever role you have identified with on tonight. What was happening? Who was there? What were you feeling right before you defaulted into that role? Let's go to step 3. Practice the opposite response. One of my favorites. I was telling someone special in my life the other day, matter of fact, yesterday, she had already established how she responds to people disrespecting her. Now she has to flip the role to let people know how that disrespect won't be tolerated. And this is exactly what you have to do. You have to practice the opposite response of what you've been giving people up to this point, right? This is where the real work lives, by the way. When the role activates, or whatever role you identify with activates, you do the opposite of what it wants you to do. Let me give you an example for those who don't know what I'm talking about. If you're the peacekeeper and tension rises, guess what you do? You sit in it. Sit your ass down. Sit in it. You don't fix it. If you're the invisible one and someone asks your opinion, you give it. And you give it with a realness that you've never given before. Safe is not the operative word for you. And last but not least, if you're the golden child and something goes wrong, what you do? Your ass should resist the urge, and I do mean resist the urge to immediately perform a recovery. Man, listen, golden child, let yourself fail in front of someone and see what happens. I guarantee the world won't end. I guarantee the world won't end. You will see that actually nothing happens. Matter of fact, your partner won't even leave you. It'll shock you. You'll learn that you are allowed to exist without performing. That'll be a life changer for you. It would. Let's go to step 4. Have the conversation with your partner. Now, listen, this you can't stress enough. Communication in a relationship or any relationship, friendship, whatever the case may be, is very, very important, significant to the growth of said relationship. As I said, if you're in a relationship, your partner needs to know what you're working on, not as a disclaimer, not as an excuse, but as an invitation. You need to tell them. You need to say, I'm realizing that I play a specific role in our dynamic that was programmed into me long before I met you. And you need to say that I'm working on retiring it. That might mean I'll start doing things differently. It might feel uncomfortable for both of us. This is what you need to say. But ultimately, what you should finish it with is saying, I'd rather build something real with you than keep performing something that I inherited. Listen to me. If you tell your partner that, if you're not married, invite me to their wedding because I guarantee it's coming. And if you are married, get ready to throw an anniversary party and invite me. I'll be there. Because I'm telling you, if you say it just like that, this is going to work. That conversation, in my opinion, that conversation alone, it would change the entire dynamics of your relationship. Not because it solves anything immediately, but because it introduces a consciousness where autopilot used to live. I want you to know something before I reach the close. You are not a role. You are actually the person underneath it. And you've been waiting for permission to show up. I'm telling you on tonight to give yourself that permission. I'm inviting you to give yourself that permission. Matter of fact, I'm demanding that you give yourself that permission, excuse me. In position, hell. The hell, I made a mistake. I meant that, obviously. Give yourself that permission to be put in position. Real talk. So in close, I want to leave you with something, right? I want to tell you that somewhere in your childhood, I don't know at what age, could have been a teenager, could have been an adolescent, whatever the case may be. But somewhere in your childhood, a role was assigned to you and it wasn't discussed. It wasn't negotiated. It was simply installed. And it was installed through 1,000 small moments that told you who your family needed you to be. And I mean, let's be honest, you played it. You played it well. What Rihanna say? Get a round of applause, standing ovation. You played it. You played it beautifully. Faithfully, for years, hell, even for decades. You played it so well. Some of us played it so well, we forgot it was a role at all. But on tonight, I'm telling you, it's a role. It's a costume. And you have a right to take that costume off. You do. I'm here to tell you do. And when you take that costume off, I want you to understand that it's not to hurt your family. It's not to reject where you come from, but it's to finally show up in the relationships that need you to show up. It's time. It's time to show up in life and be the person that you actually are instead of the character you were assigned. So here's what I'm gonna do. I hope that tonight really blessed you as much as it blessed me, because next episode we're going to go to a place that makes all of this make sense. Next week we're going to talk about generational trauma, right? But not as a buzzword, not what you think it's going to be, not as something you read about online, but the actual mechanism by which everything we've discussed, the silence, the love model, the role, travel from your grandparents to your parents to you. We're trying to break that cycle. And I'm going to show you why I turned out fine. I'm going to show you why me turning out fine might have be the most well, here's the thing. We tell ourselves, let me back up. We tell ourselves, if we haven't corrected it, that we turned out fine. But it's going to be my job next week to show you why you saying you turned out fine without doing the work is the most expensive lie that you've ever told yourself. I expect to see you there. But before you get there, don't forget to subscribe to the channel on YouTube or all social media platforms. Subscribe, get the clarity that you need. Remember, this could get ugly. This is all about transformation, not viral moments. Appreciate you for tuning in. I'll see you next time.